Commissioners meeting for August 3rd to order at 6:31. May we have a roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Brennan,
Here.
Commissioner Chang Crowley,
Present.
Commissioner Paravano, President Mateusz.
Here. I'd like to welcome members of the public and our Harbor Patrol members to the meeting. I look forward to seeing you here now and in the future. And this is the part of the evening when we take public comment for items not on the agenda. At this point in time, I don't have any comments. So let's move on to item C.
Commissioner Mateusz, if I may, I'd like to clarify for the record, and this is probably the appropriate time, there are 3 commissioners present for the meeting this evening, and I'd like to clarify that 2 members of the commission will be able to make decisions. Votes will carry on a 2-1 basis.
Excellent.
And I'd like to ask to pull some items off consent.
Okay, well first, we're at staff introductions,
Okay.
item C.
And if I, again, thank you, President Mateusz. If I can start, I'd like to introduce John Warren, our new Director of Operations. And John is a certified marina manager and comes to us from Florida, most recently via United Arab Emirates, and prior to that, San Francisco. And welcome, John, to say a couple of words of introduction. And I'm very pleased to have him here.
Well, let me start off by saying I'm very pleased as well. Very excited to be in the Bay Area, and very excited to be with the San Mateo Harbor District. I've been here just 3 days now, but I'm very impressed with the staff. I can honestly say that Steve has been very impressive, as has John Draper and Jim Alo, and all the staff that I've met. It's very professional, managed and organized operation, and the marinas, I believe, are in excellent condition at present, and I hope to get the capital projects moving as quickly as possible and continue on track as they've been moving so far. We've also got two new deputy harbor masters, one for Oyster Point and one for Pillar Point. So John Draper, as you all know already, and Jim Merlo will introduce them. That's okay.
Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
I'd like to introduce Ben Andrews, he's our new hire from at Pillar Point. Started this Monday, and things are looking up, so we really appreciate it. Appreciate everything that last 3 days, it's only been 3 days, that John's done for us too, so look forward to working with everybody. Ben, you want to say anything?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to serving the district to the best of my ability, and I'm very grateful. So thanks for the opportunity, and nice to meet you all.
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Jim Merlo. And I can reiterate to what John was saying about the last 3 days with John. They've been fabulous, and there's a new light at the end of the tunnel for us working for San Mateo County Harbor District. We're feeling better about our positions and the new hires. So by staffing us, it opens up doors for us to do more training and get things done. And that being said, I'd like to introduce Armando Medina. He comes to us after 20 years in the Coast Guard. He's just retired from the Coast Guard July 14th, and he started work here on Monday. So
No break?
No break.
I'm very, very glad to have him.
Well,
Just like Ben said, appreciate the opportunity to work for you guys, and I think it'd be I feel it's a great fit, and I think I'll do great here, so.
thank
Well,
you.
welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard. Yeah.
And John, don't worry, if you stay on the coast working here with us, we'll get rid of that can. All right, we're at the point of the evening now where we have commissioner comments. So would any of the commissioners choose to make a statement of up to 5 minutes? Moving right along, we're on the consent calendar. I believe we have a motion to pull some items, and staff has already indicated to pull item 4. Commissioner Brennan.
Actually, I would like to pull all 6 items.
All right. All the items off the consent calendar will be pulled. So item 1, bills and claims. May we have a staff report, or would you like to comment?
I just wanted to comment that, that last time we were presented with bills and claims in advance of the meeting, I had asked for more information about our legal billings, and I hadn't received that. So for that reason, I'd like to abstain from voting on bills and claims tonight, because I just feel like I haven't gotten enough information. And we've got, last meeting, it was $40,000 in legal fees. This meeting, it's less, but it's still over 13,000, and I just feel like I have really no idea what we're spending money on. So that's all I had.
Motion, Commissioner Corrali.
So just a quick question to the staff, to Steve. I had something highlighted here which is the US Bank Cal Card expense of $7,809.64. And I know it's obviously within your spending authority. I'm just curious as to what.
Then, I'd be hard pressed at this point to say how many Cal cards, but the harbor masters use Cal cards. I use a Cal card. What other Cal cards we've got in admin? Maybe mine is the only one at this point.
There's yours, David has one, but it's rarely used
Right.
for the accountant.
But generally speaking, if we don't have an account at a certain vendor and the deputy harbor masters need something, they'll go do that. Some of our recurring billings for
The email with Cap River.
Right, okay.
the recurring billings show up on the credit cards. The stack of paper associated with that bill is this thing, so it's clearly, there's good internal controls on that use.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I'd just like to follow up on that, since the Cal cards were mentioned, because Steve may not know the history on this, but when I first was elected, the commissioners actually had Cal cards also. And since I've been on the board, I believe we voted to not have Cal cards any longer. So just wanted to point that out.
Motion to approve bills and claims.
So moved.
Roll call.
Would you want to second it?
Second.
Commissioner Brennan?
Gonna abstain?
I'm sorry. Commissioner Corrali?
Aye.
President Mateusz?
Aye. Item 2, cancellation of the August 17th meeting. Staff report, please.
How does that vote count work? Just so I understand. That's a question for Steve.
So it's an interesting wrinkle, and you may recall, I recall very well because it was my first meeting as your council when a similar situation came up.
I remember that.
So the first question is there a quorum? And when someone abstains, if they abstain for reasons of a disqualifying conflict of interest, that is as if they were not there. And so if you had said, I can't vote because I have a disqualifying conflict of interest, there would not have been a quorum, and so there could not have been a vote.
Wouldn't that
You
be a
explained-
recusal, though, not an abstention?
It would be an abstention. I would call it an abstention because you had a disqualifying conflict of interest. You could call it a recusal, that's fine.
Okay.
In this case, your statement did not indicate such, so that there still is a quorum, and you need a majority, so the action passes on the vote of 2 in favor, none opposed, with 1 abstention.
Got it. Thanks for
And I think the
explaining.
minutes should reflect 2-0-1.
Right.
All right, item 2, fourth quarter budget review, staff report, noting is that the correction on our sheet here?
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
one item that we have corrected in the report, otherwise it's substantially the same. And that is in front of you marked in yellow. The most important thing is that the district remains within approved appropriations, and that the unaudited actuals continue to show a large increase in reserves relative to the budget projection. That's due to better revenues and under expenditures.
Is-
Commissioner Brennan.
Thank you for explaining that, is there anything noteworthy that you wanted to point out about this? Anything that stood out to you? And how is this getting into is this report something we can find in OpenGov, and are we gonna get a tutorial on that?
I don't have anything more significant because I think it's basically good news when our reserves grow. I think that is always significant. As far as the plan for open government, and you may know that in a day or two, if not already, I think it is already done, that the budget for the current year is now available in OpenGov. We're redoing by the way, stop me if I start getting off topic. The general ledger in the district, we began on July 1 to clean that up and make it consistent so that it will help both the quarterly reporting and also allow us to upload, beginning on a quarterly basis, our actual expenditures to budget to OpenGov, and that's gone very well. The plan is that, at first at least, to be uploading those expenditures on a quarterly basis as they're made, but I think as that becomes more and more routine and we get the kinks out of the system, I think that, speaking for my successor a little bit, I'm pretty sure that will become more frequent once we're sure how it's working and our internal review systems are set up.
Okay.
We want to make sure the information we have out on OpenGov is accurate. The one thing that we'll be missing as a result of the jail cleanup is that because the line items are different in the previous messy general ledger, showing year-to-year comparisons between last year and this year will be a little bit trickier. But going forward, they'll be very smooth, and there will be, we will be able to print our quarterly reports without having to reinterpret them and rewrite them into Excel, which causes things like, the correction I had to make tonight. It'll be, I know this is shocking news, but direct from the financial system to your eyes. So we're looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you.
Glenn, thanks for cleaning up all of this. I think it's gonna be smooth better sailing after things kind of get worked out.
I have to tell you that David Doyle, our accountant,
Yeah,
is really...
and please thank him too.
I will be happy to pass that on.
Thank you.
Okay, a motion to approve item 2.
So moved.
A second? Okay, I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Crowley?
Aye.
President Mateo?
Aye. Item 3, cancellation of the August 17th meeting. Staff report, please.
Well, we have so far 3 commissioners that have indicated their ability to attend on the August 17th regular meeting, so that we would have lack of a quorum. We aren't aware of any sensitive items that are scheduled, and we have asked for pre-approval of bills and claims, which are, when you do your review at the September 7th meeting of our report of what was paid, that will cover all the expenses between today and September 7th. And that's where the basis of the $540,000 projection came from.
Commissioner Brennan.
Who is canceling? Why don't we have enough for a quorum?
Because 3 commissioners are going to be absent.
Which 3 commissioners?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Paravano, and Commissioner Chancarelli.
Oh, okay. All right, that's the only question I have.
Motion to approve item 3.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Crowley?
Aye.
President Mateo?
Aye. Item 4, harassment, discrimination, retaliation, prevention, policy update. There was a request from staff to pull this item. Would staff like to explain to the district why we are moving so?
The most important reason for pulling the item is that there was an inconsistency in the resolution numbers, and I want to correct both in the recommended motion and everywhere else that the resolution that you are passing is 24-16. that would be the number for this resolution. What we're doing here is updating a policy that has not been updated since 2006 in an area, the area of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation prevention, that has seen substantial changes, both in terms of law, court decisions, requirements on districts, including such things as, I believe, expanding the number of protected classes. So it's finally, as we look at our policies and begin to review and update them, this is one of the ones that rose to the forefront.
And I have a question.
Commissioner Brennan.
So I pulled it off the consent also, didn't realize the staff had. Where's the resolution number? Looks okay on the resolution. Is there somewhere else in here?
In the staff report, we have two incorrect resolution numbers,
okay.
2716 and
Okay.
1416.
So I'm really glad to see that we're updating this policy. I've been asking for updates to this policy for years now, and never happened. So I'm really, really happy about this. And I was hoping you could, I have a few more questions, but I was hoping you could explain to us in more detail about the new Fair Employment and Housing Act requirements, so that it's clear to everybody what those specific changes are.
I might not be expert as to which changes are related to the new requirements, but I do have, Melanie handed to me. I don't know if anybody else would like to do it. I thought the red line version was very cluttered, so I didn't put it in the packet, but I'm going to use it to kind of highlight some of the changes, if it will help me.
Could we get the red line?
Yeah, give those to the commissioners and planners or Dave, you know. And then one, and then
Yeah, I think you can tell
Melanie.
them. Oh, you want
The section on the district's strong commitment to prohibiting and preventing discrimination has been updated and enhanced and has been added to the heading under purpose, and the statement of purpose has been changed. But that has been changed and emphasized. The group of folks who are now members of protected class include discrimination being prohibited on the basis of race, religion, sex, including gender, gender identity, gender expression, transgender, pregnancy and breastfeeding, national origin, ancestry, disability, medical condition, genetic characteristics or information, marital status, age, sexual orientation, including homosexuality, bisexuality, or heterosexuality, or any other protected classification as defined below. And then, of course, discrimination or harassment would not be tolerated. There have been procedural areas that have been updated to comply with the law and the language of the law to guarantee that we are protecting confidentiality as we should, and that people have a clear avenue to report, safely report without fear of retaliation, any kind of harassment, no matter who at the district is being alleged, to have caused it. So whether it's a commissioner or a general manager, there's an avenue laid out in the policy.
Could you describe that? Because I think that's what's really important. And since we've got some of, we've got the harbor masters here, and we've got a new director of operations, it might be good for everybody to know about these changes.
Okay, can I piggyback on that? So at the end of June, I did the sexual harassment AB 1825 training. I'm assuming that the new employees will be going through that as well, right? Okay.
In fact, all of our employees just completed the
Right.
webinar recently.
Right, at the end of June. I was there too, right.
And we'll ensure that all employees stay suitably trained, that we
right.
track that.
Right, okay.
And along that line, another important addition to this policy is the certification, which will be required shortly after your meeting from every employee that they've read this policy and, have received it and understand it. Or if they don't understand it, they know where to go to get explanations.
Oh, is that
Thank
included in
you.
here too?
Yeah, there should be a whole new
Yes.
certification section.
Oh, great.
Um, So we have now, you can make there are 7 parties, seven descriptions of people to whom you may make a complaint. Your immediate supervisor, any supervisor or management employee within or outside of the department you work in. So if you work at Oyster, you can talk to any manager, even an admin. The director of administrative services always, who is our paid human resources head. Any other manager, the director of operations, for example, the general manager, and if there's a complaint about a harbor commissioner or the general manager, it goes directly to our legal counsel. And you can complain to the district's board of harbor commissioners if you have a complaint against the general manager or a harbor commissioner.
A question about that. So say, for example, a staff member had a concern about the general manager. I'm just hypothetical. How would they go about reporting that issue to, I read that in here, but I don't understand the process for how they would report that to the commission while keeping it confidential if that was their preference. What's the process?
I think they would write a confidential note to if they asked me, I would suggest the president of the board, but I think it would be any commissioner. And as a result of this policy, all commissioners should know, please correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, that this is to be treated with the utmost confidentiality because you've already certified that you understand all these complaints are confidential and also that the individuals are to be protected from retaliation. So they could go directly to a commissioner, and then, of course, the commissioner should know that they would work with the president to see that if there is the appropriate investigation, which I think is laid out later in the policy.
Why would the commissioner go to the president? Why wouldn't the commissioner go directly to the council?
I think they could, that would be a fine first step as well.
Yes, and that's mentioned in the complaint procedure.
Okay. So just to be clear, the employee could go direct to council themselves, or if they wanted to, they could go to a commissioner who then could go to council.
Right, because as the policy lays out, if it's the general manager, they definitely should go first to council or commissioner. And but they can also go to the board of harbor commissioners.
I think it's important to note that the policy does clearly call out in the complaint procedure that there's no need to follow the chain of command. I think
Right,
that
that's the point.
fundamentally answers your question, right?
And I think our previous policy was weak, or perhaps, I could call previous, yes, excuse me. The policy that is in place until you act tonight, I think was not clear and not strong in that regard.
Yeah, this is a huge improvement. So it's a little late in the, getting here, but it's great that we're finally doing this. I know when I had my own experience with harassment by the past general manager, which was related to sexual orientation, I didn't have a clear idea what to do about it, because it was like I was supposed to report it to the general manager, but he was the person who I was having the issue with. So now having this clearly written in this document is going to, I think, provide everyone with a much higher level of protection. So, thank you.
Do you want me to continue, or should we?
No, we've pulled it off.
satisfied?
If there's another important change, I'd like to know about it. And then I'd also like to request that the red line version get linked on our website so that we could find it later.
No objection to that. Only that I found it difficult to work with, that's why I didn't put it in the packet.
Well, I get that, but we have
all the tools.
We have, yeah, the 2 versions you provided, plus this one in case for some reason we need to see it.
Well, I think that's a good idea too, because you can see the before and after changes,
Okay.
so.
All right, we'll make sure that happens.
And people have probably looked at track changes enough to know that,
The, one of those areas are that I believe are new, is an enhancement of confidentiality, being clearer about it, and reminding folks that complete confidentiality cannot occur, however, due to the need to fully investigate and the duty to take effective remedial action. Also, that non-managers and non-supervisors, harbor commissioners and contractors, all have responsibilities that are laid out in section A1, including participating in the periodic training, modeling behavior, cooperating with investigations, taking no actions to influence potential investigations, and this is an important one, reporting any act he or she believes in good faith constitutes harassment, discrimination, or retaliation to the Director of Administrative Services, another manager, or the general manager, meaning being proactive if you observe something that concerns you. Strengthening on our responsibility to make sure that employees are informed, and I think the certification is part of that. And specifics about dissemination of the policy. I don't know if I left out anything that is truly, the most important thing is that we're now, if we obey this, the district is got a policy that protects employees, protects the districts, protects confidentiality, and is enforceable and up to date according to current law and court decisions.
so this is coming back to us in the first September meeting?
No.
Because you pulled it off.
Glenn pulled it solely to correct
The resolution
an
numbers.
administrative error
Okay, but
in
you
the.
still want us to vote on it?
Yes, please.
Okay, got it.
It was pulled off of the consent calendar, not off of the agenda.
Okay, got it.
And I move that we adopt resolution 2716, is that the right number?
24/6.
Oh, sorry, 2416, approving amended district policy 6.2.5 titled Harassment, Discrimination, and Retaliation Prevention.
I'll second that.
Right, just before I call for roll call again, I have to commend staff for updating policies that have been on the books for a long time and bringing us forward and cleaning up a lot of things that existed in the past, making them new, fresh, and seeing that they're compliant with the latest code. So may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Shane
Aye.
President Mateo?
Aye. Item 5, master agreement for taxing entity compensation with the city of South San Francisco. Staff report, please.
So, as most of you are probably aware, redevelopment agencies were an entity that were recently, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer, was dissolved by act of the California legislature. And unwinding, as we like to call it, redevelopment agency has been very drawn out and complicated because there was not a lot of guidance as to how that should be done. And first of all, please cut me off because unfortunately I know a little bit more about this than I wish I did, so I may wax on. But the most important thing is that the funding that redevelopment agency came largely, by the way, from school districts more than special districts, but also from special districts. That funding supported the activities of the redevelopment agency, which were largely some housing, low-income housing support, and also largely producing development in the area that was hoped to be an economic driver. So our share of the city of San Francisco's redevelopment agency's proceeds was 0.38%, a pretty small amount. However, as they unwind the agency, we already receive the tax revenue that once, in that proportion, that once went to the agency. But also there are properties that these redevelopment agencies bought which they were required under law to put out a long-range development plan, which is approved by the state after a really complicated process, finally approved by the State Department of Finance and the agency itself, for how to get rid of this property that was acquired by the redevelopment agency. A portion of that is available and may be given to government entities for public purposes, and a portion of that is then sold for development projects. The part that's sold for development projects is, those proceeds have to wind back down to the agencies that contributed to their purchase. So for every $1 million worth of property sold out of these 11 properties, we're gonna get $3,800. The properties, I was with the general manager when we looked up a few of them. None of them are, for example, in the vicinity of Oyster Point Marina. From what I saw, most of these are pretty much downtown, close to where we have our meetings when we meet Bayside. Let's see. I'm not sure that I have anything more to offer on that. I can try to answer any questions.
I have a question through the chair.
Commissioner Jen Crawley.
So thanks for the information, Glenn. And RDA unwinding has been happening statewide over, like you said, many years. Any idea as to when we would be receiving these funds and the actual dollar amount? I may have missed it in here, but, and in restrictions as to how we can use the funds, because they were RDA funds essentially.
There is no restriction on how you use it because they're now your property.
Okay.
It's like your property tax fund, which is our, certainly unrestricted funds. They are one-time, and it's going to be important for your finance department to keep aware of that should we get a windfall, which isn't quite, to make sure that we're not counting on continued funds that we that are actually just one-time in future years. If a bill, generally speaking, there's a 1-year plan for these successor agencies, and they have a 6-month lag time.
Okay.
But there's so for example, a property were sold today, it's possible that we could see some of that money in the fall, but more likely there would be a reckoning in the following fiscal year, in the first half of the year.
17, 18.
And county auditors have a lot of latitude about paying sooner, if they like, depending on how that goes.
Okay. Any estimate as to what the dollar amount might be?
I don't know the value of the properties, so it's difficult to say.
Okay, so we still have to go through that process.
Because they're proposed for development, and I think that they're probably gonna be sold at public auction and.
Okay, oh wow, okay, so we just have to wait for that.
Yeah.
And do
I
we have
think
a
the
time?
point that Glenn made is important. It's $3,800 to us on every $1 million in sale proceeds. So I'm not anticipating
a lot
that we are going to solve anybody's problems with the proceeds from this.
No, I know, I was just curious, and I think it's really important to understand and emphasize it. This is a one-time funding source, literally one time.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we know what their process is in terms of the sale? Have we even talked to them about that? I'm just curious about the timeline. Okay.
I don't know the timeline.
Okay.
For the disposition of properties.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
No, that really helped, so thank you.
So I will move to approve the master agreement for the taxing entity compensation.
And I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Jean Crawley?
Aye.
President Mateo?
Aye. Item 6, California Special Districts Association Annual Conference. Staff report, please.
Thank you, President Mateusz. District policy currently requires that if 3 commissioners are attending a meeting out of the county, that rather than the board president approving that travel, the case with 1 commissioner, that the entire board must approve that travel out of the county. The California Special Districts Association, of which we're a member, not only of CSDA, but also their sister or affiliated agency, Special Districts Risk Management Authority has their annual conference this year in October. I am not aware of a majority of the board wishing to attend that conference. However, I put this on the agenda in an abundance of caution, should 3 or more commissioners wish to attend, so that prior to the next meeting, we can avail ourselves of making sure that we get early bird discounts for registrations, or make sure that we get rooms in hotel blocks and the like. So, given that, I'd request that the board authorize attendance at the 2016 CSDA conference in San Diego for a majority of the board commissioners, should they so choose to attend. And funds for this are included in the budget.
Commissioner comments?
I have a question.
Commissioner Brennan?
I think, Steve, you mentioned that we get some discount or something if we all take a certain amount of training with CSDA. Can you refresh my memory on that?
Absolutely. We have our property liability and workers' compensation through Special Districts Risk Management Authority. We pay a certain premium, and let's say for just discussion's sake, that's $1,000. We can claim up to $150 in credit against that premium by the attendance of staff and commissioners at various trainings. So certain trainings are eligible for one they call credited incentive point, which is equal to 1 percentage point discount on our insurance. It's not 15 staff members attend one training, we get the 15 max. I don't know the distribution, but the purpose of it is to ensure that there's a broad distribution between safety, professional development, between staff and between commissioners and supervisors. And so our goal as we move forward will be to track attendance at trainings so that we can maximize our discount potential. And attendance at this conference is eligible for credit incentive points. However, and I want to clarify, and I don't know the detail at this point, it may be that we as an agency get a maximum of 2 CIPs for the attendance. I'm not sure, but it doesn't necessarily follow that if one commissioner goes and we get 1 CIP, that if 5 commissioners go, we get 5 CIPs. Just want to clarify that.
So you have to find out how that works.
We'll be tracking that through.
So I know with the previous grand jury report, it was, recommended that the commissioners receive CSDA training. At this point, are Commissioner Mateusz and I the only ones that have done the training, or is this something, because I've not?
There's levels of training, and various workshops, and I don't have a tracking in front of me of all of the workshops that any and all commissioners have attended.
Could we track that stuff on our website? Because I think it's important to show that we're in compliance with the grand jury, and also I think it is a good thing for the district to show that the commissioners are following through with their training. I know I have it posted on my LinkedIn page, but it seems like, I could just add it as a supplement for the text of my commissioner page or whatever. We could add it there. I don't know where you want to put it, but it seems like it would be, a good thing to let people know that the board is getting the training from that association, and we are paying to be members of the association. I also wanted to mention that I was at the San Mateo chapter of CSDA last night at their meeting, and they sent the outreach person who is now covering our part of the state, and so he told us a little bit about what to expect at this conference and gave us information about the training schedule and that sort of thing, and it looks, as usual, it looks really good. So it was nice that he made the trip from Sacramento to come and speak to the local chapter. And those meetings are held bi-monthly in Redwood City for anybody that, is a board member or staff. They're welcome to attend. With regards to this, you mentioned that, because I'm trying to understand how the process works, that the board president, according to our policy, can approve travel out of state, but not for a majority of the board, or how does that work? I don't understand how that works.
Traveling out of the county, 1 or 2 commissioners would request approval from the board president. A majority of the board would require approval of the board of commissioners, which is why this is in front of you this evening.
That policy seems really flawed. When are we going to look at that?
Soon.
Soon, okay. Yeah, because the board president, it should be the full board, you know, making decisions, not the board president. That doesn't make any sense, since we're all, you know, there isn't one person on this board that has any more power than the next person. So I think we probably should get on that right away. Seems like it's just probably some antiquated policy that we have many of. Well, I guess that was it for me.
Commissioner Jane Crawley.
I think it's a good idea to also have something showing or indicating who has, on this commission, has gone through the training as a result of the 2014 grand jury report. As a member of the public who was very disturbed by that report, I think especially for those people, the commissioners who were on the commission, I think it's a good idea to have that tracked in the public realm, so that people know that we're taking steps, especially the previous commission, taking steps and moving forward and improving.
And I just have one final comment.
Commissioner Brennan.
Thank you. So I'd just like to follow up and say that it's really important that all commissioners get training, and I believe that to be the case for all special district boards throughout the state. So I don't think that there are any exceptions. And I'm very proud of the fact that both Commissioner Mateusz and I have done a lot of training, and in fact, we've received awards for the amount of training that we've done, and it's come at a cost because we both have day jobs. And so this is, you know, something that we've taken the time to do because we believe in the district and we want to do the best job that we can. And I would hope that that would be the case with all the commissioners, and I would encourage all of the commissioners to get their CSDA training. Thank you.
I have a motion to approve item 6.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Crawley?
Aye.
President Mateusz?
Aye. Okay, we're in the discussion section of our agenda tonight. We have 2 related items, item 7 and item 8. I had a request to pull item 8 off the agenda, which leaves item 7, fish fees report and discussion.
And I was aware that 8 was going to be pulled. I'm fine with pulling 7 so that we can do that when fees come back. And it sounds like that's going to be coming back soon, but needed a little bit more research. So I'm fine with that.
Okay, I'm just gonna get through my papers and find item 9.
Yeah, me too.
Here, Tom.
What page? Oh, I'm not.
Here, just take this. Just take it. There, you're right. It's not that far from that picture. It's the page before that.
There we go. All right. So item 9, Romeo Pier access and disposition. So could we have a staff report?
Thank you, President Mateusz. This item is mine. The Romeo Pier, as you know, has been slated for demolition for some time. I've got a very brief background on the project in the staff report. We originally leased it from Romeo Packing in '76, and in '98 we purchased the facility for $185,000. In Then the pier was closed due to deterioration, and even though we had acquired title to the pier or ownership of the pier, the relevant part was that the pier was abutted the land on private property. And we executed an agreement with Romeo Packing at that time to allow for access over the property. We then, after the pier was closed, we canceled that agreement. We're now applying for permits for demolition of the pier. We've been working with Moffett and Nickel. We are very close to being able to pull the permit for the demolition from the California Coastal Commission. We've got Army Corps approvals. All those other approvals are in place. We need one final little piece that allows us allows Coastal Commission to finalize that permit. And that is, they would like to see an agreement in place to allow access over the private property. And we recognize that the condition of the pier doesn't allow for demolition from the land side. One would normally think one would drive out to the end of the pier with the equipment and then start picking it apart from the end and working landward. However, the pier is in such condition that we can't do that. So the majority of the work will be done from a barge-mounted crane, and we'll work back from the outside end, probably back towards the middle. However, again, the Coastal Commission is requiring access across an agreement to authorize access across the private property owned by Romeo Packing. I'd hope to be able to bring to you by this evening a draft of an agreement. Mark Massara, the counsel for Romeo Packing, has been, and the company itself have been very, very cooperative. But we haven't gone to that point of having that agreement. However, it is timely to do that, especially as there will not be another meeting in August, because it does allow us to pull the permit, put the project out to bid, and see if we can get this work done before the end of the year. The budget currently includes $625,000 for the demolition. So the first part of the request this evening is that you would authorize the general manager to execute an agreement subject to District Council's review and approval with Romeo Packing for access across the private property. Secondly, there is a small portion of the pier highlighted in yellow in the board package that extends to the edge of the land there at the revetment. And if you can imagine, the pier begins on the land, ramps up to the required elevation, and then heads on out. And at a certain point, it passes the revetment and is now over beach and water. Staff is also requesting approval to execute an agreement with Romeo Packing to actually give them this little stub when we're done. The options really are to remove it all, and that would add additional cost for not just the removal, but for the disposal of the wood, or to leave it there as it's not a threat or a risk or safety hazard, as is the pier itself. If we leave it there, then the question becomes who owns it, maintains it, and insures it. Because of that, staff is recommending that we leave it there, saving us money in demolition and disposal costs, and then basically make Romeo Packing, if they so choose, and I believe they will choose, to take possession of that, thus relieving us of maintenance and liability concerns. That's my staff report. Questions have been raised about whether that access is in fact private property. It is. We did have an agreement in place for access across that private property. We negated that agreement in 2010 and stopped paying the $100 a month that allowed us access to the property. And so here we are in 2016, trying to wrap up a project that, in an ideal world might not have been necessary, but the pier is so far gone that it is, I believe, critical that we do everything we possibly can to pull the permits and get that pier down this year. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Guess I had members of the public talk to me about who's the ownership and granting ingress and egress, but we never owned the land at the base of the pier. You're just talking about the wood.
That's right. There's no real property involved at all. The real property is owned by Romeo Packing. On top of that real property, there is a pier, or the base of the pier. And the suggestion, the recommendation of staff is to leave that wood structure on their property for them to use as they see fit.
You were mentioning a couple of agreements. So is it just one agreement, two agreements, three agreements? Would it be easier to just, even if we can't have our next meeting, if we even had to have a special meeting, to look at the agreements and say, make sure that everything looks great?
You could certainly do that if you so choose. It would have to be a special meeting though. I believe that we will have those agreements in hand very shortly. And like I said, I really would want to make sure that we can keep the process moving forward.
I know there's been some concern among the public and different groups that we don't want to be giving something away. And I think that a lot of people didn't understand that there was private property already. So I'd like to hear somebody's idea that perhaps we'd like to see those agreements and then have a special meeting.
Right. Yeah, the district council has just suggested, and I make clear, that the access agreement for the purposes of demolition of the pier is at no cost to the district.
Could I comment when it's my turn?
Commissioner Brennan.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I find all this a little confusing with the staff report, because what I hear is, I think I'm understanding that there's going to be a draft agreement, but that we're not gonna get to see it. You're asking for us to approve something that we've never seen, that's just gonna get worked out between the
Again, I was hoping that Mr. Massara with Romeo Packing would have something to us. I actually got it today, and neither I nor district council have had a chance to properly review it. It's a very simple agreement in its draft form currently. It's about a page, a little over a page long. It basically says, we've got this private property, you want access across it to demo the pier, we grant you access, but you make sure that we're not responsible for the actions of the contractors, safety of the public during the course of that demolition.
Could we get a copy of it?
Yeah, well, President Mateo is suggesting a special meeting to review the final document once district council has reviewed it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd be happy to take a recommendation, execute the agreement, and then both distribute it to the commission and post on the website. Whichever the commission prefers.
Could we also get a copy of the agreement between the district and Romeo, the company, so that we can see what was initially agreed upon, and then if there was a termination agreement or some sort of termination letter, that'd be great to see too. And then I think it'd be helpful to see the meeting minutes from 2010 when we stopped payment on the, or whenever the decision was to stop payment on the access. Those are the things I'd really like to see. So I just think that this is a big move for us, and while I support demolition of the pier, I know that there are a lot of people out there that really love that pier, and I think that we should try to make the process as transparent as possible and just provide all the relevant information so we can make a really informed decision. That would be helpful for me.
Commissioner Chang-Crowley.
So I actually would concur with Tom about looking at the agreements. I mean,
Okay.
So maybe the direction to staff would be just to get the agreement
Get it wrapped up
right
and
and
schedule
then
a
bring
special
it back.
meeting.
Yeah, I think it's important also
Okay.
to look at an agreement before we enter into the actual agreement.
Okay.
So we don't need to vote on that, we're just,
Providing
staff
direction.
Providing direction, staff understands. All right, moving on to item 10, professional services agreement for request for qualifications. Staff report, please.
Okay, well, first, and I'll mention this again, I do want to make a change to the recommended motion to add to the first sentence, authorize the general manager to negotiate and execute professional service agreements with the following firms. Now, I'll repeat that later. But what we're doing here is, there's various steps, of course, to the process of completing our capital improvements. We have funding approval from the commission for $22 million in capital improvements over the next 5 years. We have reorganized our staff. We are filling positions such that completing these improvements is, we think, actually likely, not just feasible, but likely. What we want to do, though, is try to streamline the administrative process, because we don't necessarily want to beef up administrative staff if there are ways that have proper controls and allow us to keep these projects moving. What we've done here is done an RFQ, and we took the responses to the RFQ, and the RFQ was for a variety of design, permitting, engineering qualifications. And it's important to note that we have to pick these based on their qualifications. The law doesn't allow us to pick them solely on the basis of price, but we have to pick qualified engineers. And we used them, we did the RFQs. We actually accepted every RFQ, every response that we got. These are 4 of the best known marine engineering firms that do business in this part of the state, and some of them all over the world. And what we are proposing here is that we negotiate and execute professional service agreements with each one, covering in the scope, their specialties for which they're qualified, so that when it is time to do design for each of these many projects, or engineering or permitting, bid packets, we do not have to do an RFQ for each specific one. We still will amend the project with scope and a dollar amount. Any engineering, design, or similar project that exceeds the general manager's procurement authority of $25,000 will still need to come to the board. It will all be done within the budgetary appropriation. What we're really just eliminating is the one step of having to do the RFQ for the design services by doing this one that we did, which was combined. It's also our intention that periodically the RFQ would be run again, because we can certainly add to the list of firms that are available. The more qualified firms we have to choose from, the better decision-making that we can make. And I'm sure that we would, staff intends to interview more than one firm when several are qualified for these projects. I'm not sure that I have much more to add. The nature of the scope, I think I mentioned, will be amending as projects are designed. This also does not prevent staff from doing an RFQ for any particular engineering project if we feel that would help us get a qualified firm in a better way than limit. So it doesn't limit us, it just allows us those options.
Any comments from the commissioners?
I have comments, but if anyone wants to go first, that's fine with me.
Go ahead.
So I like the idea that we are lining up some contractors to be sort of available as needed. I think that's makes sense. I am a little hesitant because of some of the past problems, not with the current management, but while I've been on the board. And I think we've talked about this before, where in the past, projects were piecemealed so that they would be underneath the GM's spending limit and wouldn't see a board meeting. And that resulted in things happening without the public or the board knowing about it. And there were some problems with that. So I would hope that we wouldn't get back into any habits like that, because if a project is going to go over the spending limit, then it really should come to the board, and that way there's a public process. The other thing that comes to mind is the public outreach piece of doing projects. And that's something where we've had maybe not the best processes in the past. And I'm thinking specifically recently there was a charrette held, what was called a charrette, but it wasn't really a charrette, because a charrette is typically a public workshop. And instead it was called a charrette, but it was really a staff-to-staff meeting, which is staff-to-staff meetings are fine, but to call it a charrette, and it was budgeted by the contractor as a charrette, means that we're essentially paying for something and not getting what we should be getting, which is a public workshop, which is a charrette, so that there's public outreach and people understand what project options are going to be put in front of the board. And so I think there's some fudging going on of the public process, and that's something that I'm particularly concerned about, because it's been a trend over the years, and it seems like it's not gotten better. It seems like it's actually getting worse. And I've noticed that on this list of contractors, a contractor is listed, an engineering firm that has done work at the West Shoreline Trail that potentially maybe needs to be redone. And I don't know if it was a problem with the engineering firm, or if the staff directed the engineering firm to do something that didn't make sense, or if actually the staff didn't follow the recommendations of the engineering firm. I don't know where the breakdown happened, but we ended up putting in a drainage pipe that doesn't connect to any reasonable drainage. And so that cost the district a lot of money, and now we may need to yank that out, redo it, or do all kinds of other things, including a hydrology study to figure it out. And so it's sort of like we're doing this backward process where obviously you should do the hydrology study first, then you should figure out based on that what to do about the drainage problems and the erosion problems, and then you should spend your money wisely based on the information you got from your hydrology study. And instead we did this backwards process, which made no sense, and so we ended up with this build out. So it wasn't just the engineering firm, then there was a contractor hired to build what the engineering firm apparently recommended, and now we find that that pipe doesn't connect to anything that's a real conduit for runoff. And that's frustrating, because we all want to solve the problem. We all want to fix the erosion problem in that area, and the public's been looking at this with the district since, I think, 2011. So we've been paying that engineering firm since, I believe, 2011 to work on this one trail, and so far the only work that's come out of it may need to be redone. And so I'm just very concerned about what happened there. And I see that that firm is back on the list, and I don't know if it was something that they did. I don't know where it all fell apart, but just recently this charrette was held, and the public wasn't notified about the charrette. The board wasn't notified about the charrette, and it wasn't really a charrette. So, I can't help but wonder, why are we paying for a charrette, which is supposed to be a public outreach opportunity, when it's just a staff-to-staff meeting, which shouldn't rise to the same level and be described as a charrette. So I'm just very concerned, because I really want to see that project get done well, and start to really solve some of those erosion problems. And it feels like the people that we've had looking at this haven't been paying very close attention. And if I can go out there and see this problem and identify it, and if President Mateusz can go out there and crawl around on the hillside under the cypress trees and see the problem and bring it to the attention of our staff, there is a breakdown in the process. And I believe probably, and I don't know, I didn't talk to any Harbor Patrol, but I would guess that any one of the Harbor Patrol could have looked at that and seen that it didn't make sense either. And so I have to bring that up because I'm really worried about, repeating those mistakes. And I want to get to a place where we're not going to do that. And we have new people on board, so hopefully we're moving in the right direction. But I'm not comfortable with voting to include that firm in this personally. The rest of the board may feel differently, but I'm not comfortable with that.
Right, we went a little bit wide of this proposal, but I think we understand what you're trying to say. Any other commissioner comments?
Through the chair. So I know that this was discussed at the strategic planning committee meeting, so and I know why. We were looking at a long-range thing. As a member of that committee, we were looking at a long-range plan and still putting the pieces together. And I think that this RFQ process came out of the fact that we just wanted to have people ready to go when we go through a project. I'm not sure that the public process would be compromised, and I wasn't here before, so I don't even know which firm Commissioner Brennan is referring to. And I'm assuming that I know that I'd be very careful in making sure that the public process was not compromised. But I'm just trying to find out where, I don't know which firm she's talking about, so I don't even know how to begin that conversation.
If I can address that, Commissioner Giancarelli, I think that Commissioner Brennan is not talking about the public process in issuing the RFQ, but in a portion of a contract with one of the proposed firms, GHD Inc.
Okay.
I'll just run through the firms very briefly. Muffin Nickel, very well respected, very large national company. Canon Corporation, when this went out, I made sure that the RFQ went to several firms that I've worked with in the past. Canon Corp was the only one to respond. Surveying, peer work, structural, so on and so forth. GHD Inc., that has been around for a while, has done work for us for quite a while. And to address the specific issue that Commissioner Brennan brought up, the project of West Trail was done in two separate parts. The first part was an emergency permit because we were going to lose the trail. This was before my time, but it was clear that the trail was eroding away at the location of the pipe. There is a non-functional drainage system that ties to the culvert that goes underneath the pipe. It's non-functional not for no other reason than the fact that it hasn't been maintained, and ideally
you know what? I think this is getting off topic, and I think we should agendize this because it deserves its own agenda item. We really should. It really is important for the public to hear about this.
I was just trying to address your concerns about GHD, Commissioner.
Well, actually, my question about that.
And,
so,
and then the fourth firm is COWI. This was not a firm I was familiar with, but their proposal looks. It sort of surprised me that I wasn't familiar with that firm because they're clearly so well qualified to work in our field. And so that's why staff is not unaware of the issues and concerns around the work of GHD, but nevertheless still recommends that all four move forward to be in our stable of consultant engineers and designers that we can call on.
so I have full faith and confidence that you would know this better than certainly I would, because I'm not familiar with that industry. So I feel very comfortable making a motion to authorize you, the general manager, to negotiate and execute professional service agreements with the firms Moffitt and Nickel, Canon Corp, GHD Inc., and COWI Inc. I am sensitive and recognize the concerns that Commissioner Brennan has brought up, and so if we want to agendize that issue at another time, we could, but moving forward, just so that we've got a cadre of professionals ready, and so that we're shovel-ready, right?
Mhm.
Because if the funding's available,
Right.
that would be my motion, and I don't know if there's a second.
I'd like to offer an amendment to have Moffett Nickel, Canon Corp., and COWI Inc. included, but not GHD.
Do I hear a second to that amendment, or, I guess?
Well, I would have to accept the amendment, right?
Correct.
you
So
accept-
I can, yeah, that's fine. I'll accept that amendment. And so the amended motion will be to authorize the general manager and to negotiate and execute professional service agreements with Moffett and Nickel, Canon Corp., and COWI, so the three firms.
And I'll second that.
Okay,
But also, well, I guess for the GHD, do we want to agendize that on, or does it even matter if they're not even going to be in this? So, well, let's just vote on this first, and then we can talk about the other thing later. So there's a motion and a second.
all right, I'm personally uncomfortable with the amendment and the second to the amendment. However, roll call.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Shane Crowley?
Aye.
President Mateusz?
No. All right, that takes care of item 10. So for Board of Harbor Commissioner Committee reports, I see no minutes prepared to discuss and approve. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, we adjourn.
Thank you.